One day, in a remote area, lost in the mountains, surrounded by deserted fields and a frightening atmosphere, a devilishly terrible phenomenon occurred. The Shadow Valley Hotel was famous for its friendly staff, but all the guests who stayed here noticed oddities in appearance and an aura of mystery that shrouded every corner of it. Despite this, the hotel continued to attract people, beckoning with its incomprehensible appeal. Travelers were accommodated in different hotel rooms. Every room was decorated with sheer whimsicality, paintings depicting dark scenes, images of mirrors and pieces of furniture that seemed to come to life. Their curiosity overcame all fears. As night fell, strange things began to happen. Shortly after midnight, the travelers began to have terrible dreams. They saw ghosts and heard unfamiliar whispers entering their minds. But every time they woke up, everything looked normal, as if the dreams were just an illusion. In the morning, the hotel guests gathered together, and each of them shared their nightmares to find an explanation for strange events. All the premises were searched, but nothing that would cause such mental anxiety was found. Hours have sunk into eternity, and every moment the hotel became more and more mysterious. The walls started to crack. In the hallway, night closed over the ominous hotel, dragging it into the darkness of secrets and intricate plots. Thunderclouds hid the storms, and only the flickering lights in the windows gave hope for the light action of this crazy lunar place. The majestic Hotel Forgotten Shadow stood on a mountain, turning its dark face into a bottomless abyss. Its sight seemed to be a revived dream of sadness, and each flying raven caused an ominous thrill in the hearts of visitors. One dark night, the bell rang again, opening the gates to a new soul. It was on this night that an inconspicuous man named James came to his father. He fled from his pursuers, and the Forgotten Shadow showed up for a few lost hopes of safety. James crossed the threshold of the sinister hotel and found himself inside, where uncertainty and mystery entered into his meeting. An old footman led him through the corridors, writhing like snakes, the crimson carpet and heavy drapery adding to the gloominess. The room reserved for James always had a cold atmosphere. The walls were covered with mysterious runes, and the dusty closet threatened to collapse from its own importance. James has lit a candle, and its flames cast eerie shadows across the cracked walls. James caught whispers and muffled footsteps from deep within the hotel. All his senses were alert, and he decided to go to explore this gloomy place to uncover its secrets. During his journey through the corridors, James discovered closed doors that hid forbidden rooms. His curiosity got the best of him, and he decided to find a way to get into these forbidden places. One of the doors was unlocked, and James quietly stepped inside. To his surprise, the room turned out to be full of dark artifacts and books promising knowledge. A prohibition of the mind. For a person, the longer he thinks about these social texts, the more they take over his mind. The night went on, and the hotel clock struck midnight, when a reasonable person should have been in his room and could not prefer from them. He read and researched more and more until he felt that the curse of the hotel was beginning to oppress him. His mind was blocked by shadows and rustles, and the walls of space surrounded him, ready to pull him into their bottomless darkness. James began to resist, but his soul began to be saturated with the evil that lived inside the hotel. Finally, when the morning came and the sun beamed into his room, it turned out that it was only a shadow of who he was before. The hotel had consumed his mind and strength, leaving only the wreckage of himself. So he stayed in the Forgotten Shadow, a cursed hotel that absorbs souls and secrets, the history of which is revealed only to those who dare to cross its threshold. And although it seems to be a place of attraction for adventurers, it always harbors fear and danger for those who boldly wander it. In a small town, immersed in darkness and secrets, stood the old dark horror hotel. He towered on a hill surrounded by ominous trees, his appearance evoking a vague, unsettling feeling in people. Once upon a time, life and bustle were in full swing here, and now the hotel has turned into a forgotten. One dark night, however, a group of visitors took refuge in a hotel from a raging storm. It was late, and there was no other accommodation in town. They entered the lobby, warily looking around. There was an unclear atmosphere in the hall, and their footsteps sounded loud and rumbling. As if someone, the hospitable innkeeper, greeted his guests friendly. But his eyes hid something dark and mysterious. He made his way to the room. But even inside the rooms there was no sign of him. The old, dilapidated walls made an unpleasant sound, as if the stones were dead. And the worn carpets had traces of every dreadful night, when all the visitors fell asleep. On an extremely important occasion, there were rustles and ominous whispers in the walls. Moving objects moved, changing places on their own. Shadows slid down the corridors, causing guests to freeze in horror. One by one they began to disappear, without a trace. Their belongings disappeared. No one saw or heard them themselves. Those who remained in the hotel became increasingly paranoid. Suspecting each other of secret shenanigans, they were all prisoners of the hotel, consumed by darkness and fear. The history of this hotel goes back more than a century. It is said that in the distant past, supernatural rituals were held here, evoking spirituality and awakening sinister entities. Steeped in darkness, the Dark Horror Hotel became their haven, where they continued their insidious influence. Those who survived in this respect approached terror, under the burden of memories and secrets that would never again pose a danger. Their minds were desecrated, and not a single night passed again without nightmarish dreams and curses. The Dark Terror Inn remained in people's memories as a place. In the darkness of the night hotel, where silence reigned on every floor, a story full of horror and anxiety unfolded. It was a place where guests sought relaxation, but little did they know that they could easily face nightmares pulled from the very depths of their fears. Hotel Shadow Residence is located in a secluded area, surrounded by forest. Its facade rose above the gloomy trees, as if warning the curious of the secrets lurking within. Once there was an incident here, and now there were so many murders that the souls of the dead remained here, wandering through the corridors and storerooms. One day, newlyweds Jason and Allison decide to spend their wedding night at the Shadow Residence. They were fascinated by the atmosphere of the place and the romance that the experimental hotel inspired, but their joy quickly turned into horror when they settled into the room. Their room began to fill with unusual sounds. The strange rattle and rustle were so annoying that they decided to find out what was the matter. They went down the corridor. As they entered the hotel, their eyes fell on an old sealed door. Suddenly, a faint knock came from there. Curiosity got the best of them, and they decided to open the door to find out what was behind it. When they entered, a terrible view opened before them. The room was chock full of antique dolls, their eyes staring into space as if they were in charge of their own lives. The dolls were all covered in dust and filled with the smell of old age. Suddenly, the dolls began to move. They slowly turned their empty eyes to the young couple. Jason and Allison felt terrible anxiety as the puppets began to whisper incomprehensible phrases and sway in a dance. The terrifying scene continued until all the dolls froze and looked straight at Jason and Allison. They shuddered in fear. It became clear that the room was filled with malice and evil forces. Suddenly, a gloomy view in the shadows, tall, with a twisted face and predatory attractiveness, he began to approach the couple. It was the spirit of the long-dead former owner of the hotel, who remained within these walls, dreaming of revenge on all who dared to disturb his peace. Jason and Allison found a way out of the room, but the door slammed shut on them with a deafening crash. They were trapped, alone with puppets and a vengeful spirit. The darkness swallowed up their cries. Since that day, the couple disappeared without a trace. The Shadow Residence Hotel continues to exist, attracting new victims with its mysterious charm. Those who want to find peace within its walls go for a ready price, which can be taken for a night in this cursed place.